usually it's planted in temple. But now, but we have new name. Just change the name because its name is not as good, like about grief and sorrow. But now it's changed to happiness.
They would like it all. He'll be okay when we start talking about politics.
So I need to voice out.
Just a joke.
Shall we start?
It's very popular in Thailand. Kidding, just kidding.
Just keep it to the secret.
We don't have to translate it into realities, do we? We don't have to translate everything into realities. No. Did you hear that? Term for everything either, right?
Because we are not Makati.
Right. We're not Makati, we are people of Magadha. Those people whose native language is Pali. Nice to see you.
Afternoon session was a little bit disturbing, but after that, Kun M changed the computer, so the sound is better. So hopefully today, the sound will be okay.
Can he join us?
Do you have a question to Tadao? I'm talking to Tadao and he's not even there.
Someone will say that you eat too much chili.
That's the cross.
Or too much Vietnamese coffee.
Some of his questions, some of his hot seat questions, and he and Tom particularly interested in politics and Dhamma.
But I'm not going to transfer the politics into reality. So I'm interested in politics, spending time to read it, and I got some complaints from some people. I cannot mention the name here, sorry. And it could be nice if we could talk a little bit about how harmful it is. If it's harmful, then I can understand a little bit more about that, how harmful it is or whatever.
It's a natural support, decisive support. But
Accumulations.
yeah,
Accumulations. But I don't think we need to present it in the way that it is harmful, right?
is it kusala or akusala?
I don't know. I mean, politics is, we cannot say it's kusala or akusala, but depending on
Okay. Attachment is kusala or akusala.
akusala.
So is it not attachment?
I think for me it's attachment to
For
a topic.
everyone now there is attachment. It doesn't mean that only on politics. Anything which appears. Otherwise, how can King Pimpitsara be the king of Makata? It's only panya, not the situation or the story, because there is attachment now, no matter it's on politics or whatever. That's why there should be the understanding of the kusala and akusala, because that is right understanding, and it's not me or mine, it's only reality, which appears at moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. No difference at all. Politics of household, kitchen, or garden, or whatever.
And when people object or don't like this interest, then for them they have to consider what the reality too is. Would any of the nameless people like to make any comment? Like now, if we're interested in the flowers or we're interested in reading the newspaper about politics, of course, most of the time it's attachment, so natural. Like now, no matter what the interest is, it's loba, but so common. So the way is not to stop looking at the flowers or following that interest, but understanding more about Chitta now and how the different mental factors like loba support the Chitta at this very moment. And because he mentioned at the beginning some people object or don't like this interest, so I asked if the people who object have any comments, and
Actually, I understand there's a nature of everything, but I think the problem is not we complain about interest or people's interest or something. It's just that sometimes we share that how we see the deity is our viewpoint. For example, so when we're fighting for the democracy, it doesn't mean it's kusala. And what I mean is just you have to make sure that you don't take the wrong thing to be the right thing and vice versa. I think the duty is there, which is and also
I think her point Jan may consider it's something more important, that there may be some view that this is the right way to do things.
It's
like fighting for democracy, for example, or fighting for something to be kusala. Then
When
that
you think
moment,
about the others, not only yourself, if you just sit quiet, but you can do many things for the others, what would you do?
for me, the Dhamma is the best gift.
Every moment is Dhamma. Warrior can study, can understand reality.
But when there's the view that this
Yes.
is kusala,
You know what happened? What had happened in Thailand before this government? See, before this government, what had happened? And we do not sit still at all. If we can help in all, every way. Not just only Dhamma. Because Dhamma means that can be sacrifice or nekama, not for yourself, but for the other, for the whole nation. Otherwise, what's the use of understanding reality? Not doing anything for the others at all. That's why the followers of the Buddha is not limited at all, for everyone. More or less.
To greater or lesser degree, we all have an interest in politics. It's just a matter of degree.
Okay, what degree? Because it had happened in Thailand before, and we know how can we be away from such situation before this government.
But also, isn't there an assumption in what we're saying that if one wasn't so interested in politics, that the citta would be more kusala?
No,
No?
no, not at all.
So what's the question then?
I think I'm trying to clarify Tiny Tam's point that it's not so much that she doesn't agree with that interest, that only she wants to discuss the point where there can be many moments of mistaking what is not necessarily kusala to be akusala, because it's a story. When we say we're fighting for democracy and it's akusala, it is a story, right? Yes, I think it's her point. So she's not so much that she objects that interest, but she just wanted to discuss about that so we can be clear to avoid taking that whole story to be kusala.
Right. So the issue is taking conventional good for being kusala, right? Yeah.
What about kindness? What about compassion
Right.
for the country, for the people?
It depends on the citta of the individual.
Yes.
Yes.
So one understand oneself what for? Not for oneself, but for the others.
Well, you can't tell yourself that it's not for oneself, it's for others.
One knows that it's not for oneself.
Different moments.
Yeah.
Just like
Why do we study? And why do we share our understandings for oneself or for the others? Because the moment when you think of the others, it is your own kusala. At that moment. Not just for I, but also for the others too. So while we are sharing the understanding, it is for us, for everyone. But at the same time, my citta is kusala. So the kusala conditions such moments of discussion.
seems to
If
me.
not, I'll go back. See?
I think at any time the citta will be mixed in the sense of not pure kusala, not pure
I
akusala.
think that kusala is kusala, but we cannot stop the arising of akusala in between.
Right.
So the point or the motive of it must be kusala.
Yes. So even now, if I'm discussing Dhamma, I may also be concerned about whether I'm being appreciated or whatever. You know, there's mana involved, obviously, and I cannot claim my motives are pure kusala. But there is kusala and there is
Can
kusala.
kusala mix with akusala?
Not at the same moment.
See,
but
so
in
kusala must be kusala,
alternate
and akusala
intermingling.
must be akusala. No one can stop akusala and kusala at all. It depends on accumulation. If something that I can help many people in Bangkok now, I go back. But I know that where am I is for the others, no matter here or Bangkok or anywhere. So not just for me, for anyone.
But it's easy enough to see in the case of discussing the Dhamma. But if we were discussing politics instead,
This is Dhamma. The life of Bodhisattva before he became enlightened is just like now. For others, that is the great compassion, not only for him.
but would there be the same degree of kusala if the subject was
What do you mean
politics?
degree? If I can do something for the country, for the other, for the whole, for the world, just me, it doesn't matter. I can do that.
But just thinking that one is doing it for the country or for others doesn't make it kusala.
For kusala too, because if country is just like that, how come the situation to study and to live better?
It seems to me that one can think one is doing it for the others and
At
be
that moment,
and be
there can be
mistaken
right
about it.
understanding of that moment. It's not self.
If
This
that
is the point.
understanding has been developed, then Panya will know.
Certainly. Because you see that otherwise the self is the master of the world, the attachment to oneself.
But when it's a conventional topic, not Dhamma,
I think that,
can one generalize
that
and
if
say
there's
one
no
is doing
reality,
it
there's no
for the
conventional
world, for
situation.
others?
If there's no citta, citasika, can there be conventional situation? So we think just about conventional situation, but not really understand citta at that very moment.
The important thing is understanding
Yeah,
citta genesis.
yeah.
Sometimes the difficulty in talking about politics and whether they're kusala citta or akusala citta is that in politics, and especially when there are more extreme divisions of opinion, people will think one side is right and the other side is wrong. In Thailand, it could be the red shirts, the yellow shirts, it could be the Republicans, the Democrats in the U.S., anywhere. So, and I think there's a mixing of what is kusala and akusala with, in terms of the sides in politics, which is, quote, right and which is not, because each side in the politics story thinks they're right, whereas it really comes down to the citta at the moment.
I think that we should understand what politics is before we can talk about it. Because people think of politics like sides, but what actually is it?
Citta, cetasika, rupa, thinking.
The white or the black?
Still thinking.
Politics. When one takes politics from black and white, it's not politics, to my understanding. I'd like to understand what politics really is. Idea with ignorance, attachment, aversion as all beings, no matter politician or not. So, can there be good politician? What is that? If we don't try to help people to have kusala, there will never be good politicians at all.
That's true, because what we call a politician is really just Jeta Sita
Yeah.
and Rupa.
Yeah. There can be good politicians when there is understanding.
When there's understanding.
I think the word gets people excited, the word politician, but I think it's just another story.
Right.
And it's really, are we speaking the truth or are we lying? You know, and is it honesty that we're dealing with things or not? Of course, I think that it's really up to every moment and how we act and how, if we are helping other people. I don't think Thai wants to become the king of Vietnam. He just wants to have a different approach to governing and willing to try it. And that's my feeling. Of course, I appreciate him because I agree with him. But I think that it's your actions at any moment, your thoughts, that and politics is considered dirty, but every moment is a different word, a different thought, a different motivation to me.
I think there are two issues. One is for oneself, what is one's consideration or what is one's motivation and intention, and only one can know, only one's panya can know for oneself what is the reality at any moment. And then when we're concerned about the other's interests, then we have, again, it's back to our own Chito. What is the reason for concern? Is it just because it's my husband is concerned about your interest? I don't think it will bother her at all because you're not living in the same household. So, so one has to know one's own Chito, whether one's really concerned or whether it's because of one's own attachments. So the two different, it comes back to one's own Chita, I think.
Well, I'm going to bring this down from politics to just between friends, because a kusala action on my part, doing it for my friend, she may take it as a kusala. No, I didn't. Okay, continue. Well, I'm just thinking of a situation, a very dear friend is very sick, living on her own, and is dangerous, in my opinion, because she's falling, and I feel she should not be on her own, that she does not want to move. So I think out of compassion, I'm afraid for her, and I encourage her to look to live elsewhere. She probably thinks I'm concerned for her, but she doesn't want to, so she thinks that's not right. I mean, she doesn't like me to say that, so I don't say it anymore because it's not good. But I'm a kusala action for her, but I think she sees it as being a kusala. She doesn't feel that as helpful. Could that be that a kusala action on one part could be taken as a kusala by somebody else? But no one can change a kusala to kusala.
I also think that we've been saying all along. Can you hear? Okay. We've been saying all along that only Panya can know what is kusala arising now, here. You cannot know anything about others, right?
So
understand what really politics is. To me, I think that we have family, our friends' family, and families and families and families as a country, right? Do we not have any responsibility for the others in the house and on and on and on until it's the country and the world? But I think that with ignorance, one take black to as white or white as black. But right understanding can understand. The more you understand reality, the more you can see the moment of Kusla and Akusla. You will not kill, you will not tell a lie, no matter what happened, to be to help the other to follow the right way, to behave or to do to friends and families and the others. So it does mean that we close our eyes and we don't look on the others at all. Just leave them as their own karma. But if you can do, you do. I mean, I, not you. If I can do, I do. And I have done too.
But I'm just.
You might not have known.
It just comes to my mind, like, for me, the greatest gift that you share with us is your understanding of the Dhamma. And we never discuss politics together. And suppose that, and I'm very grateful for your sharing of the Dhamma, but suppose that you have one opinion about the politics, and I have another one.
See, but you know the truth is the truth. That's we have to find out before we do anything. It doesn't mean that we just follow, but we have to understand clearly, evidence, everything, so clear.
So that comes from the understanding of the Dhamma.
Right.
So what I am getting at is, when we say that in a conventional sense that we are helping others, but
Based on
some
our
another
understanding.
person might not think that it is
It
helping,
doesn't matter at
right?
all, because it's one's own understanding. We don't mind or care what people think. If we do mind and care, not enough time to think about anything at all.
But it's very difficult to really think that this what I am doing for others in a general way can be kusala for them.
But you have to understand, first of all, whether it is or it's not. It's not just follow one's own akusla, but one has to be very discreet. What is right and what is not right. Can you help? Will you help? If you can. Just for kusla.
I think you're thinking too broad, too wide a term. You have to think in one individual. So for my instance, my friend, I think what I'm doing is kusla. She doesn't agree with me, but she's still my friend. I'm not going to fight her or I give my opinion. I know, I understand, I think I understand why she doesn't want to. So we don't talk about that anymore, but we're still friends. It's easy to think on an individual. If you're thinking too big, it's too big to think in politics and country, and I think you only need one instant, one moment now at a time.
Yes, that is, I think, where everyone can agree. See, like everyone can agree that at certain moments, what is kusala is kusala, and what is akusala is akusala.
But not everyone can see, not everyone sees the right understanding. What's my kusla may not be your kusla.
The nature is almost kusala, right?
Kusla is kusla, but how can I say?
It doesn't matter who take it for.
Kusla, it is what it is.
Right. Yeah. And you feel much better. Otherwise, you feel trouble.
It is what it is.
I think if we don't do anything and we just study Dhamma, which we should do, then, someday we live in a family, as Ajahn said. If we don't help the family, then little by little, what happens? And in some cases you can see where people become inactive and do nothing. And then the results can be bad. So you hope that people who have kusala intentions and kusala actions will help the family. Otherwise, the people who are greedy and selfish and have wrong view will make things much worse for everybody. So I think, of course, some people don't have accumulation.
There's a Russian folklore story about a man hearing a voice, and it says, "Oh, get him out of here." He removes the rock, and upon his back is a being that is called trouble. And trouble gives this man many problems. He listens to this horrible type creature called trouble. Trouble wants to do everything to help this man. He asks him, "What can I do? What can I do?" He'll do anything except get off his back. Russian folklore for children. And the other, I can just say from personal experience, for example, a being with a long dirty rap sheet who's very sleepy, a prostitute, career criminal, organized crime, what have you, let's say goes out and rapes a woman. Now his colossal ego tells him he's handsome and highly desirable. By his justifications, an elaborate series of justifications, he hasn't harmed this woman. He's her fantasy come true. But the woman is harmed. So, what someone, so I think it leads, the question arises, Ajahn, about compassion. What is compassion?
Thinking about the others with compassion, understanding. And if one can help, one helps. Compassion, otherwise you just close your eyes while the others are suffering.
And the near envy of
Compassion is feeling sad, so if one feels sad when one hears about someone's difficulty or problem, then for sure if there's any unpleasant feeling, it's not compassion.
Having pity.
Having pity, it's not compassion.
That's the version.
I'm thinking of the Buddha. I'm recalling at least 3 times when the Buddha directly involved himself in conflict. And when I first read it, I thought, oh, that seems really strange. And perhaps the first example, the most classic example, is when the Brahmin, who was an advisor to King Ajatasattu, came to see the Buddha, and he wanted to know if he could invade the Lychali kingdom. And the Buddha just spoke to Ananda and said, I automatically thought he would just dismiss that question. But he didn't. He answered the question. He said, Ananda, do those Lychali princes meet together regularly? Do they have concord with one another? Do they treat those who are less vulnerable well? And he went on, I can't remember all the 8.
Don't pay the soldiers, but pay them the due. And go to the shrines, they observe the traditional.
You observe the traditional ways. So the Buddha, and when I first read this, I thought, oh. So he directly involved himself in many ways. He was speaking the truth, but he involved himself. The other example, of course, which is perhaps the most classic, was when the 2 tribes were going to fight each other, and Buddha over water, and Buddha reminded them that what is more important, water or blood? And of course, there's no response to that. You know, obviously to fight would bring about bloodshed, and they didn't fight. There are other occasions, so people may say, yes, that's the Buddha, he will know. But we've all got different accumulations, and I think it's, I see I'm just feeling around, and I notice it brings up some quite strong feelings. And it will come down to that sense of compassion. We often tie it up with what to do. It's difficult sometimes, very difficult, but I think the issue shouldn't be dismissed lightly.
Well, I'm not familiar with the second one, but the first one, and I'm not sure if it's true to say that the Buddha involved himself in the situation, in the conflict, because in answering the question, I don't think he answered the question. I mean, he gave a response, but I wouldn't call it an answer to the question. I would call it a teaching on kusala, developing kusala. And what he in fact was saying was that kusala karma brings kusala vipaka. So I think that that is obviously the best way to answer any question, if the person is capable of understanding the difference between kusala and akusala, and encouraged to develop more kusala. So I think we should be wary about thinking that the Buddha involved himself in conflict directly or politics.
Yeah, what Ajahn said about kusala and understanding realities leads to more kusala, which leads to the politics as well. And kusala cares about others in any way, including politics.
So, and also in answer partly to Eve's question, what is compassion? In the absolute sense, it is one of the wholesome mental factors. So as we were discussing yesterday, it can only be known as and when it arises if there is the understanding that knows the difference between wholesome and unwholesome jittas, moments of consciousness. One cannot know from the kind of thought or subject matter, just because it's about another doesn't mean, of course, it's wholesome. So again, it comes back to having the need for there to be better understanding of the difference between wholesome moments and unwholesome moments. And then that would be the beginning of understanding compassion and the opportunity for its development.
When I give money to the poor to help them, do you appreciate? And if the country is very poor,
the question is whether it's
closer to politics.
The question whether it's kusala or not, though, is a different matter. Because giving money to the poor,
yes,
there can be kusala or
help them to live
akusala.
in order to understand, right?
Sure.
Understand. You see that we have many things to think about, not only study Dhamma, because not everyone can understand the teachings. It's so very subtle. That's why if we can help the students or the patients in the hospital or the poor to have better living, and also help them to understand the teachings too, that's the point. Because one person just donated money to the foundation, and I asked that lady, why didn't you give to other places like hospital and schools? She said that I had done a lot, but the patients, when they were recovered, the same. See, our student just grown up the same. So she thought that the best way is to have people to have right understanding, and that's true. So, but you say that can people be in situation enough to develop understanding if the surroundings and everything is not favorable. So I think that in case that whatever comes, right, then if one can help, should one not help? From time to time. Even the enemy, see? If he's sick, should we cure or nurse or care?
And those just the counter question, sometimes it was an elaborate response, in which you gave, in this case to the Brahmin, and other times too, where other people were going to harm one another, and he directly involved himself and asked really profoundly beautiful questions to the people who were one of the protagonists who were involved, and they really rethought the direction that they were going to go down. Yeah.
In the well-known case of the lady who lost her family and came weeping and wailing to the Buddha, and he asked her to fetch the mustard seed, which eventually led to her gaining understanding. One could say, well, he involved himself in psychoanalysis or whatever. He didn't. He taught, helped people to understand the truth about realities. And it's true that there was context to his teaching, always context, and that's what distinguishes the suttas from, say, the other Dhamma. So when he was talking to monks who had wrong practice of different kinds, like the fire worshipping monks, he taught in terms of fire. When he was talking to kings and warriors, he taught in terms of conflict. But always the underlying teaching is the same, and it's about understanding present moment realities, as I see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also think that because we talk about, we discuss many things. We discuss about kusala, helping others, and getting involved, and those are many the terms that each one had to be defined clearly. Otherwise, we're not clear about what each other is saying. So I think even when we say that I am involved in politics, many people can be involved in politics for different reasons. And so only oneself and the degrees of panya that can tell whether this involvement is conditioned by karuna or metta, or by just clinging to ideas, right? So without the development of understanding, like you've been sharing with us, that we immensely appreciate, I think that would not be possible to distinguish.
That's why we should know how come to be politics. Politics. If people just live alone. So what condition? Politics. For whom? But it depends on the politicians. That's why we should help them to be good for the whole country, people.
And it's not a matter, I think you mentioned,
Sundara, sometimes it's difficult to know what to do or not do, but actually whatever is thought about now, whatever is done is by conditions anyway. So it's a matter of understanding now more about citas, so that is the way that whatever deeds are performed by conditions, there will be more kusala and more help, no matter how one's involved in society. And that's why in the commentary we were discussing into that sutta the other day, it talks about no matter the topic is about worldly affairs or kings or politics or whatever it is, it depends on the mode of attention, whether it is yoniso or ayoniso manasikara, depending.
Thank you, Ajahn, for getting politics distilled when you spoke of the politics of the household, the politics of the garden. Before these large city-states came and humans were sparse population, I think ultimately it boils down to relationships and compassion and Dhamma, to distill it down to the smallest unit and build from there. Then healthy politics in household, healthy kusala in household, in the garden, next door neighbor, city-states, and so forth. But the smallest, simplest unit is Dhamma.
I think President Obama was an honest person who had a lot of compassion, and people were very excited, but he didn't really understand about killing. And when he got into office and they asked him to use drones and kill more people, he was surrounded by wrong understanding. And for all the good person he probably was at some level, his understanding was weak when it came to killing. But compared to the other person they might have elected, probably, who knows, but the signs were not good that that person had more understanding. So in the end, we have a family and somebody's going to make decisions for us. And it seems it can be useful to try to pick somebody that you hope will have more understanding of the teachings at one level or another.
That's why if you can help having the understanding person or the understanding politicians, that's the best way.
Then, because I haven't studied these details, but it all depends also on one's intention. Like, for example, when one's intention is to give an order for some bombing or drone attack, is the intention to wipe out a station or a fuel depot, or is the intention to kill or whatever. So again, one just has to know for oneself at any moment. Like we had a little example in Vietnam. This is a little bit like Deb's example, taking it smaller. Someone mentioned about their puppy dog, which was covered in fleas, and they took it to the doctor, but they know what the doctor will do, and was this right or wasn't this not right, but it depends on one's intentions. It's one trying to help the dog, or what is one's intention, and even if the dog removes the fleas, what is the dog's intention? The dog's intention is to help the dog. So the point is that one can't judge by the appearance or the situation, because who knows what instruction was given to the military commander or whatever. So it always comes back to one's own chitta, regardless.
That's why understand reality, and then you can help the other to understand. That's the end.
I have a question about metta and karuna, compassion, because usually we talk about how there's many more opportunities for metta in a day, because any time when one is with people, one can help, one can be friendly, one can show kindness, but karuna is only when one sees the suffering in another that there are opportunities to help. But we know, for example, the Buddha had the greatest compassion because he had compassion for all beings. So we can say actually that the more understanding, the more opportunities there are for compassion, because one sees the harm and the danger of ignorance, no matter where or who one is with. Any comments?
So I think that we have to understand the reality of metta. It is adosa cetasika. Whenever there is adosa, there is friendliness. So no matter where and when, not just morning, not evening, so anytime when there is adosa, one can be friendly. One will not get angry, even the bad words from whoever, friends or family member or whatever. So adosa cetasika, any moment it arises, it is friendly. But compassion is when there are those who are in trouble, sufferings, that if you could help, if you help, it is karuna cetasika which arises.
But my point was that when the more understanding one sees the difficulty whenever ignorance or attachment arises in life, because this is the cause actually of all problems in life. So the Buddha had the greatest compassion because he can see the difficulty and the unsatisfactoriness of any Dhamma, any time. So whenever he's with people, there is compassion. So with more understanding, more opportunities for compassion.
For all kusala. And that's why he said he himself was the best Kalyana Mitta. Mitta is friend. Friendliness. And also he has great compassion because the world is in trouble. Because of kilesa harms the world. So one world at a time.
So the more understanding, more kusala, all kinds, metta, karuna, no matter the circumstances, no matter one is talking about politics or anything else.
So metta can be any time, and karuna when someone is sick or trouble. That is great time.
So for me, I just have some small opinions about politics, not much, a little bit. But when I see that the people even in the country that is the most civilized, the most well organized and rich, and people live, in relative justice. Even in those countries, people still suffer from ignorance and wrong views. So I think that is the best way. It's really to develop understanding and helps in that way. This is my own accumulations. Because when we think about making a change in the world like that, it's like going to the not to the source of the problem, like you mentioned.
Well, it's a bit like those who are working to alleviate or eradicate poverty. As we know, poverty will never be eradicated because its people, well, I don't like to put it quite so bluntly, but there will always be poverty, you know, just as there will always be very rich people. It doesn't mean that one shouldn't strive to help those who are poor and raise them out of poverty. And it may be that many of the people working in that field have an incorrect view of what's possible and what's achievable. So I think it just comes down to the individual's accumulations. They may want to go to another country and work and help the people there.
I try to teach this to everyone, a huge act of compassion. So it's, in a way, that was politics in the realm of the Sangha of that time. So I think in some ways you could say he was leading by example, but I think any act of compassion to help either other people in any way can be kusala.
And as Tom said earlier, any topic, it's about Dhamma, so even the beginning of this discussion, I know if I talk about Nisya Patya and Hadiyawatu, Tom will be interested, but you and Tom are not here very long, and I don't think Glenn might be here, so I know this is more useful and more interesting way to discuss Dhamma for you.
It's just thinking, when we say about politics. So it can be right or wrong thinking, wholesome or unwholesome.
And actually it's just about the same kind of dhammas, but it's good, like the Buddha taught from many different approaches and angles and using different kinds of language which were familiar to the listeners. And it's the same thing, it's, if one's not interested in the approach, if one just talks about different Chaitasikas or something, it may not be interesting, but this is also about Chaitasikas and Rupas.
And I think that when there's more understanding, we can understand everyone in the world. Seeing is not Thai. Vietnamese, French, seeing is seeing. So reality is have no nationality at all. So the whole world becomes object of understanding of Dhamma or Dhamma. And I think that thinking about politics is another angle or side of compassion or metta. It can be. Because it's not only oneself.
Something sensitive between me and Tiny Tom.
Not only to look at that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
We're not the only household.
Or country, yeah.
Only, even in the family, different ideas.
Because
I saw the news and I see that the government did something wrong and I disagree with that, and then by ups and now they come say that, well, it's like this Akusala moment that
And what about women not talking about that? Is it that Akusala? Different object, that's all I'm thinking.
No, it just, I think, at the time it's not the problem of
Kusala or Akusala, but it just maybe the things that all the result of karma refer to the government, but not to one's own karma.
It's like, so what is government? Again, starting with what is it?
It's just
Everyone's own karma and vipaka.
yes. Like you were born in Vietnam, you were born in Western
country, and you're born under the certain regimes. It depends on your own karma.
In a group of different countries. Combination, relation.
I didn't get what your point was what? That
I think because I meant that it's not the problem, it's kusala.
What should study Dhamma? Understanding, helping, having kindness, compassion, or kusala.
and is one more concerned about the other's kusala or one's own kusala? That's the question.
I'm speaking on her behalf, but I think that she's more concerned about views than kusala or akusala.
Is it not right or wrong understanding when you talk about view? Right is right and wrong is wrong. But who can know that? Only the one who understands the truth. The best thing is to understand the truth of everything.
When talking about politics, for example, there may not be any views involved. Views about realities, that is. There's only views about conventional things, as a rule. And these are not right or wrong views in the Dhamma term.
What about good politicians and bad politicians?
Only convention. Not in the Dhamma sense.
No really, no reality, wholesomeness and wholesomeness.
In Dhamma terms, good means kusala and bad means akusala.
Right.
Right.
So
that's all.
can there not be good politicians?
Good
and
politicians
bad
can have akusala and bad politicians can have kusala. So I don't see, you can't classify a politician as good because one doesn't know their jitta anyway.
Different.
So the killer is not bad.
Sorry?
The killer is not bad.
Killing is akusala.
And the killer?
Commits akusala.
Without killing, can that person be killer?
The killer commits akusala gamma pata.
Yeah. Right. But without killing, can there be any killer?
No.
Mm-hmm. So what a killer is?
He, in terms of that particular...
Only that moment of killing.
Yeah, he's bad at that moment. Mm-hmm. Then he's also capable of kusala, moments of kusala, at other times.
Go ahead, you can practice and then repeat it.
I just want to back to my politics story.
It's life and it's reality. It's Dhamma. Different aspects, that's all.
because in Vietnam it's a little bit different. I mean, the politics, we got just one party, so normally I usually talk about what they did is wrong or what they did is right, and sometimes I support to the activities that I think that they do good for the human rights, like they protest for the wrong thing and help the poor people. And that's what I involve in the politics, that I talk out loud. I mean, let's say put it on the internet, comments about this, comment about that, what is wrong and what is right, and have the activities for the people.
So the point is whether one should not involve but interested in politics or not at all. What's the use and what is the benefit? Not beneficial.
It's not really a question of should if there are conditions. No, I think the interest in politics.
But if you know what politics is, not only you, what about the others?
I think we can take your earlier example of the family and say, well, should one be interested in the family's welfare? But different members of the family will take an interest according to their particular accumulation. Some will want to look after the wealth side of the family welfare, and others the health side.
Yeah.
So it's like that with politics. Some people naturally incline towards participating in the decisions at that level, and others have little or no interest in actually participating, and they may have an interest in reading it in the paper but not actually care much about the outcome. for the good of the country, but that's doesn't mean
You don't talk
it's
about
kusala.
those with, who has strong understanding of akusala.
Right.
But can the good one fight too?
A person with highly developed kusala could take part in political discussions.
I
and
don't mean political, just fight.
Fight.
Yeah.
Argue? You mean argue or
No, fight.
fight? If they
Panya and ignorance.
Mhm.
Panya is not enemy.
We cannot judge the citta by the action.
No, Panya is not.
Yeah.
Just the.
We don't know.
Yeah,
If
but
a
we
person
talk
is
about
fighting, we
we
don't know
talk
whether they
about
have
right
kusala.
understanding, with which is Panya, and ignorance. Ignorance is enemy.
Right.
But Panya is not anyone's enemy.
Right.
But does Panya fight?
In terms of absolute realities, yes. Panya eradicates, it overcomes, it kills, if you like, ignorance.
In America, we've had many soldiers that go to fight for their nation. Even in Vietnam, many soldiers went to fight for America in Vietnam to protect us from communism and from Muslims, and they all feel they're serving the nation. They're not going there for their personal well-being at all, but they will go and kill and hurt other people.
So they fight for us?
They think they are fighting for us.
I think that otherwise they won't be soldier.
Right.
For the others. They know that they'll die, for sure, in war, sometimes, if it happens. But they can do that for the others.
But if they are told that's
For
not
sure.
But if what they are told is not true, then
It depends on citta.
Yep.
But we live happily when they are soldiers.
So, Ajahn, are you saying then that soldiers, for instance, American soldiers who went to fight in Vietnam, believing they were doing good for their country and others, for their country and others, and
For
those
selfishness.
well, they believed they were doing the right thing, fighting for their country, for democracy, against communism, fighting on behalf of the Vietnamese people, and these people. I think there are moments they would believe they were fighting, for the good, well, they can't say kusala because I don't think they understood what kusala was, but they're fighting and they're killing people in the name of these things.
But when it is one's own selfishness, it cannot be kusala.
Correct. But I think many of them went not feeling selfish. They honestly believed they were doing the right thing.
So in that case, is killing justified? Is that what you want to ask?
How Panya eradicates or even kills ignorance. A historical account of a young boy, David, who was very good with a slingshot. There were an army of giants called the Philistines who were just killing people. And of course, how can one reason with that? Come out speaking Dhamma or something like that is you die. But he did something very brave and noble. With his slingshot, as a boy, grown men were afraid and ran away. They were just no match for him. He killed the Philistine.
Different moments.
He was moved by compassion because the killing.
Different moments.
But it depends on the cheetah
At that very moment.
at that very moment, and right action. So it's certainly a very difficult question. Certainly not anything that I would ever hope to understand, but just a little tiny understanding.
Each moment is conditioned. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting discussion about this. Thank you.
Real metta is to everyone, right? It doesn't go to only my own nation or this group of people and not the other. So when there's real metta, we cannot kill someone else because of another person.
At that very moment, impossible, because it has to be done with dosa mula citta.
I wanted to comment, that arose to comment on is there is training for military, and various governments or countries imbue their soldiers with a certain ideology, probably not Buddhism, but they actually do go over there and think what they're doing is right. So I don't know. It's a big question mark there whether.
But whether one knows or not, ignorance is ignorance, attachment is attachment, and at the moment of intending to kill or killing, it is akusala for sure, and that when there is the killing, it is karma pata that will bring its results. So no matter what one's told, it doesn't change the fact that kusala is kusala and akusala is akusala. Ignorance is ignorance.
Sometimes the wholesome realities are compared with the warrior, right? Warrior. Fine. War between kusala and akusala.
And I think the point about different interests is because one cannot be, say, studying or talking about Dhamma all the time because one has many accumulations and many interests. So if it's not this interest, it'll be another interest, but actually just different kinds of Dhammas. So for me, whether I'm reading the newspaper about politics or reading the Dhamma book, I don't think of one as being right or one wrong or one better or one worse, because either way they're just different dhammas, different jhitas, kusala, akusala, moments of wise reflection, moments of unwise reflection, regardless. So however one's life goes, whatever the interest is, it's just by conditions at that very moment.
I don't think that is what anyone is suggesting, that there should not be interest in politics or there shouldn't be actions, something like that. But I think it's good that we have the discussions like this to clarify, because the more we talk about it, the more we understand the matter better, and you can condition.
And maybe it means also when one has those discussions, or one can reflect more in terms of what's wholesome and what's unwholesome at those times, and one has to just know for oneself when one's reading or studying or discussing what jhitas there are, what realities there are.
And some might think that the teachings of Buddha do not concern with the world situation or anything at all, but actually the teachings just about everything.
Because everything is chitta.
Mm-hmm.
But without understanding it as chitta, sika, and rupa, it would not be the teaching, right?
And when we talk to other people, whether they're our family or friends or just people we're just meeting, there are bound to be many misunderstandings and wrong understandings about the Dharma. So that's why we talk about different realities. But those misunderstandings are going to be there no matter what the interest, whether it's in sport or food or anything. So that's why we talk more and more about dharmas, to clarify what is right and what is wrong. So that's the purpose of being here. Yeah. So any questions about karma and vipaka?
No.
It was a war veteran who told me that a soldier who said, to kill a man is one thing, but then you have to live with it. A war veteran said to me, he's a soldier, he said, to kill a man is one thing, but then you have to live with it.
You remember the action afterwards. You can't forget it.
What reality is that we should remember?
Could you?
Remembrance is nimitta, and cetasikas, mental factors, and also chitta.
A mental factor performs that function, remembering.
Cetasikas, thank you.
This one mental factor, one cetasika that arises at every moment with every chitta, and it marks and remembers at each moment. So at a moment of seeing, it marks and remembers the visible object seen. At a moment of thinking, it marks and remembers the concept that is thought about. And this is sanya, cetasika, which arise at every moment, remembering at each instant. So nothing forgotten at all because of sanya. And it accumulates even now. So not attachment. Sanya it arises at every moment of every chitta. So it arises with kusala chittas. It arises with akusala chittas, such as when there is attachment. It arises with vipaka or result chittas.
And this is accumulation.
And so sanya now is marking and remembering each sound heard, each idea thought about, and that sanya accumulates. So that's why tomorrow there can be reflecting on what has been heard now. So the reason there can be thinking about these dhammas or remembering the names of the people in the room is because of sanya. In Vietnam, someone brought up someone's idea about the gradual teachings and how people have an idea that the Buddha taught first about dana or doing good or something like this, and only when people were ready would he teach about absolute realities. And your comment was that this person doesn't understand the Buddha or the teachings at all, because whatever is taught is about dhammas that are anatta. But perhaps the idea is a little bit like we were discussing, if someone is very poor or they just have an interest in politics, that first one may help them with their immediate situation and then talk about dhammas when it's the right time. Do you have any comment?
I think that if one just talk about dana, sila or anything, it's not the teachings of the Buddha. It's not his word, because each of his word contains right understanding of whatever is there. For example, dana is not Thai language, it's not English, but the people in those days know what dana is, to give or giving. That's not enough to be Buddha, just tell people to give, but to know what it is. Even sila, see, people before the time of the Buddha's enlightenment also observed sila, but it's not parami, know nothing about it. It's eye for eye, so it's not the teachings of the Buddha. That's why we learn that the teachings is about that which is now appearing, it's Dhamma, to understand.
Yes, yesterday evening at supper, one friend was mentioning about do good, and I was saying, well, yes, and remember, not anyone who does good, because if one has the idea of just doing good or just giving or just observing sila, but it's all I who does it, then as you say, it's not the Buddha's teachings, and also it's just an idea of the situation or the behavior. Actually, there isn't any understanding of what kusala citta is and akusala citta, like sila. If there's no understanding of what is kusala and what is akusala, then how can anything be known about sila?
He didn't just say giving, dana, enough. That's not his teachings. More than that, much more than that. And he just said to those who came to see him about whatever was there. Seeing. Is there seeing right now? Is it permanent? What is the object which is seen, see, to be understood as not self? And what under what subject is understanding, seeing, see, not dana.
When you mentioned, with regard to the Eightfold Path, that two path factors are understanding and the rest is samatha. So the first two concern with understanding and the rest concern with samatha. Well, I'm just saying that what Ajahn mentioned, what her words were, that two were under understanding and the rest were under samatha, but no mention of sila. I'm just interested to hear more about
So we have to understand what is sila again.
Well, if we're talking about the path, it is certainly kusala, citta, but sila means behavior of citta, so it can be kusala or akusala or abhyagata for sure.
So what's the question?
The question is usually when people talk about the path, we talk about it in terms of understanding sila and samatha. or samadhi, but you were talking about it in terms of 2 factors under understanding and the rest 6 factors as samatha.
It's in the Pitaka.
Yes.
What are the 2?
Right understanding and samasankappa, right thinking, would be
It's in
understanding.
the teachings in Tipitaka. Because some people might think that when one develops right understanding, there's no calm. But actually, the Eightfold Path comprises both samatha and vipassana. No need for extra development of samatha at all. As one understands that any moment of kusala is calm.
Yesterday we said that the moment of calm is samatha, but it's not the development of samatha if there's not understanding which understands the reality as calm. So when you say that when the vipassana is developed, samatha is also developed, is it because of that, or it's the moment is
different
also
level of understanding?
Okay.
Because you see that if now at this moment there is no understanding of the distinction, the difference between kusala and akusala, how can there be the development of kusala? So it needs a level of panya which is able to know the difference between moment of kusala and akusala. But for vipassana, it's not only that. It's the understanding of the nature of reality which appears.
So at the same time, samatha can be said to be developed as well, or it's
certainly, because all kusala moments are calm. Kusala. Akusala cannot be calm. So calm here doesn't mean that one doesn't think about those and that, but it's moment of wholesome cetasikas arise, so it's calm. But sati cetasika, not even samadhi.
The question is whether it's those moments are sure to be calm, but is it also called samatha bhavana, or is only no?
Not at all, only samatha. Because bhavana is the development of more and more, and the purpose is to be away from the world of sensuous object. Because the result of the degree of the state that one has attained, even the first one, condition the birth in the Rupa Brahma.
I think your question is about moments of satipatthana. Are they considered the development of samatha also, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I think the answer, as Ajahn has previously explained, would be yes. Because
vipassana
different.
Yeah. But vipassana bhavana means the development of understanding and samatha together, yoked together.
Because the purpose of samatha bhavana is to attain jhana, which will condition birth in the Rupa, in the Brahma world. Because they see the danger of the attachment to sensuous objects. But at moment of satipatthana, the calm with right understanding of that level is much better than samatha bhavana, which will lead only to the birth in the Brahma world. That's why all patipatha paths which do not lead to enlightenment are wrong path, miccha patipatha.
And that's why when you see references, for example, in suttas to understanding and calm, samatha, for example, or being yoked together, it's actually referring to the samatha developed in the development of vipassana.
Are you talking about the sutta where the Buddha said there are 4 ways in which enlightenment, like samatha before and samatha after, or samatha before and vipassana after?
Ananda, I think.
Yukanata.
Yes.
And also at moment of path consciousness, the ekagata is level of jhana, whether or not mundane jhana has been developed, attained.
What about the moments of vipassana jnana? Is it considered the level of access concentration also? Of the the ekagata at that moment of vipassana jnana, is it considered to be of equivalent strength of access concentration?
At that moment, yeah. But I think and so we read about two kinds of jhana, but I think in terms of that sutta you mentioned, Yuganada Sutta, then it's referring to those who had developed samatha to jhana first, and then so different by accumulations, yes.
I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, was the Venerable Ananda, and he was saying that everyone who attains has attained by one of four ways, which he describes. So these are sometimes read as being ways of practice that one aims for, but that's not the meaning of the sutta as I see it. It's just the fact that it happened that way for that person. And so he divides it into four ways, but they're not four different ways of developing the path.
I have notes on jhana. One is patience, and the other one is burning. Could I have further clarification on the definition or meaning of the word jhana? Please, thank you.
I haven't heard this idea of patience. The meaning of jhana is burning. So at that moment, the kilesa, the defilements, are burnt temporarily. They don't arise. No attachment to sensuous objects at that moment, at that time.
So the patience is to endure the burning. Although it does not mean patience, perhaps jhana helps to develop patience to endure the burning.
Have you heard anything about patience as a definition of jhana? No.
Because they arise together like viriya cetasika, that's all.
Many wholesome factors arise at that moment with that citta.
I think that we take the Pali terms very serious, while the Makati people in Makata province or country, just it's ordinary language for them, their own language, like upajara, samadhi. It means close to be appana samadhi. See, so it's close, just close, but not yet. So when we talk about the development of right understanding and vipassana jhana, it is temporarily eliminate the idea of self, but it's not close to enlightenment as samatha bhavana. Upajara samadhi is close to appana samadhi, but we don't know how much apart for each one.
So as you said many times that the moment of vipassana jnana, nothing else appears at that moment, only the object of understanding that appeared through the mind,
one.
or so like in upachara samadhi, in samatha development, at that moment also no other objects of the sense arise, only so maybe in that sense the two can be said to be
by
similar.
way of samatha, it can be upajara, but by way of eradication, it's only temporary. Tathanga, Samadhi. Oh, excuse me, Tathanga Pahana. Tathanga Pahana. Pahana means eliminate or eradicate or kill, overcome.
Never heard this word.
Tathanga? Yeah, Tathanga.
It's like tender insight, or
Temporarily.
the translation into English of this word?
Momentarily. That is Taruna, and this Tathanga. Yeah. What is Tathanga?
Kusala and against the akusala, eliminate. Mean opposites, the opposites. Opposites, yeah. It's in there, yeah.
Momentarily. Tathanga, it comes from khana, moment to moment. Yeah. Tathanga.
Anga is factor.
Moment.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not yet completely, absolutely.
So it's killing.
Little by little. Eradicate. Yeah.
I'm interested in the question about when you mentioned about Vipassana Jnana and only one object and Samatha one, but it's only ever one object that appears.
Just the difference, like now, the sense door appears, right? So the my door doesn't appear, but at the moment of Vipassana, like Ajahn explained, it's totally different from now, because the my door appears and not other object appears, only that object at a time.
But actually now, whether it's known or not, only one object appears because of ignorance and lack of understanding. It seems that what is seen lasts for a long time. It seems that it's sense door, but actually it's only ever one reality for an instant that is experienced and then gone. It's just that it's covered up. So what is experienced at that moment is exactly the same, one object, one reality, but instead of being covered up by ignorance, it's known or revealed. But still just one object now or then.
No. I have questions from a friend in Vietnam who's listened yesterday, but I think now it's gone. Because yesterday he asked, what is the best thing to do with a dying person? What is the best thing to do with a dying person? But actually this morning we received the news that that dying person is already dead.
If someone is dying, what is
Is dying.
is dying?
Who can do? Not at all. If you have kusala citta, if kusala citta is there, then you be kind, compassion, and try your best. That's all. No rule. Each one is different. It's not like magic word or anything.
Can we say the best thing for anyone is to help them understanding the Dhamma if they are capable of, or to the best, to the extent to which they are capable of doing so. And then I think it's the same if we are dying too. Always the best thing is just to to develop understanding, to reflect on what one has heard.
From now. Not then.
The question comes from the belief in Mahayana that it's a special thing can be done at the moment of death, so that can help the person to be reborn in a good realm. That is the idea behind.
Ajahn has explained many times before that the last moments of citta are conditioned by past karma, and we don't know karma from which lifetime or anything. So even if we turn the volume up to the full and have the monks chanting or whatever, no way to affect the last moment of life, this life.
Just do your best. Okay.
I remember once when we were in Burma and a Burmese gentleman came to see us, and his mother was dying, and he kept asking Ajahn, but what should I do? What's the best thing to do? And she kept replying, you know best, it's your mother, you do what is suitable for her, but how about understanding now as a seeing now as a visible object, and what kind of citta keeps asking this question now? So always back to now and this moment. But so the Dhamma is not about making rules for behavior in life, but it's about understanding at this moment what appears now.
And we can see how, just as in many things in life, it's no good waiting until the end to think about what's important.
When one is concerned about what will come at the moment of death and how to prepare about it, it indicates also clinging to oneself, right? Idea of
Someone were to say to you, Ajahn, as they did to me yesterday, well, now I'm 60, 70, and it's too late to start studying the Dhamma. It should have started 40 years ago or something like this. What would your answer be?
Too late.
You mean too late to answer now?
Too late to think about it.
No use thinking about what happened 40 years ago. How about now? It's no point in thinking about what I should have done or what could have. Yeah, but it's now. It's not too late now because there's the opportunity to hear now.
Too late to think now.
Don't think about starting, just start.
How?
Otherwise, it's too late.
Listen. If no wise considering now, next moment already too late for this one. Maybe we finish now. So I expect lunch will be at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
For now?
And discussion.